Welcome to Azure Data Factory Real-Time Scenario 14. In this scenario, we are going to discuss about incremental load data from Azure SQL Database to Azure Blob storage in ADF using Watermark. So incremental load, it is also called as a delta load in ADF, refers to the process of extracting only the data that has changed or new or updated records since the last load, rather than copying all the data from the source to the destination. This approach improves the performance and reduces resource usage. So what is the watermark? Watermark is a key column that has the last updated timestamp or incrementing key. The delta loading solution loads the changed data between the old watermark and a new watermark. So this is the diagram. So if you want to perform the incremental load, so we are using this diagram. The first one is we will get the old watermark value and get the new watermark value. And the old watermark value should be get from the last iteration or from last source. And it is from the source table. And we'll use some updated here stored position to update the watermark for the delta loading for the next time. So for this purpose, we required two lookup activity, one copy activity, and one stored procedure to update the watermark for the delta load next time. So we need to perform the following steps. So we need to prepare the data. Again, we need to create the data factory, link to services, data sets and pipelines. And we need to add few more records for delta loading or incremental loading. So for this purpose, let us move to the Azure portal. And so Azure portal, I have already a resource group rg_Azure. If you don't have, please create it. Then we require SQL database. So let us create the SQL database because it is as a source for me. And you can choose your subscription and you can choose your resource group here. Then we need to choose your database name. So I'm using here database name. So you can type anything but whatever you have. And we need to choose database server. So I'm using some database server. So and I'm using as India as it is I'm closely located. And then here the main step is here authentication method. So under the authentication method, so you should choose a server admin login and password and re-enter the password. And we need to review and create. So it will take some time to create a database for us. So your deployment is completed. So now we are going to the resource. So here the main important steps we need to look after, that is called set firewall. And we need to use here selected networks and should come down. And here the first one is firewall rules. And here we need to choose here anything you can type, whatever you can, otherwise you can search in Google. IPv4 address example. So I'm taking this one 192.1. I'm using this. You can use anything. Then the second one is exceptions. So allowing exception is also most important. If you do not do any one of these things, so then you are able to connect to the database to the Azure portal, and we need to make it as a save. Click on save. So now we are finished with, we have created the database. Now we need to prepare the data. So for this reason, I am using here query editor. And 4, then you need to log in here. So it will take some exception. Then you can you need to click here allow list IP. Then you need to click on OK. Now, so it is came to the Azure database server. Now we need to prepare the database. And run it. Next, then we'll see the data. Here, this is our table name, data source table. Select start from database store. So here we have 5 records are loaded, and this is the last modified time. So it is our watermark value. Then we need to prepare watermark table also. The first here is we are creating watermark table, and we are inserting a duplicate value because as we are loading the first time, and and again I'm selecting from that. See what the date is here, the same date is replicated. So this is now the new watermark column. So once you are loading the data, so this will be replaced. Again we require a store procedure to update the watermark column. So this is my store procedure, and so my store procedure is also updated. So I'm going to keep all these things under the description. If you want, you can go and check it. All this, how to create the table, and what is the watermark column, and what is the store procedure. So I'm going to keep all these queries under the description. So I'm completed preparing my SQL database. Now I required a blob storage, because blob storage is my sink here. So blob storage, so I'm giving storage, some numbers I'm giving here, and that should be unique, as you know that. And review and create, so we need to wait till the deployment was completed. So it will complete very soon. See, deployment was completed. So it's still under process. So we need to wait here. Now your deployment is completed. Go to the source. That means blob storage has created, and under the storage we have container. So I'm creating a container, and I'm giving as a raw to that name. The name of the container is raw. Now my container is completed. Now we need to create the data factory. And the resource group already we have, and we need to use Azure data factory some numbers, because the name should be unique, and I'm using India, so already is there. So I'm giving one more number, and we need to review and create. So here deployment is in progress. We need to wait until it was success. So deployment was completed. Now launch the studio, data factory studio it means. So we need to create the following steps here. So already we prepared the data now. Now we need to create the data factory, completed. Now we need to create the linked services. So for this purpose, go to the manage tab. Under the manage tab, we have create the linked service. And we require two linked services. One is blob for the sync, and give the name ls, nothing but linked services, and select the subscription and the storage container name, and test the connection. Connection was tested and create. So we need to create one more linked service, Azure database, Azure SQL database. For this is for source, linked service, and the subscription is as page as you go, and this is my server name, and here it is my. We need to choose the database which we have created, and we are using SQL authentication and username, password. So what we are used before, and we need to use test connection. Some connection has failed. So because my database name is ADF00, but I used 001. That's the reason it was failed. Now it was successful and create. Now two linked services completed. Now we need to create data sets. One is sync data set, one is source data set, and one is watermark data sets. So that's the reason go to the other tab and create the under the data sets, create a new data set. So first one is source data sets. So we are using Azure SQL Database. So I am using here DS as data set, and we are using linked service already created, and table name is, so we are using here source, and schema evaluation no, and next we need required one more data set for sync. Sync is nothing here, sync is our blob storage, and I'm using a delimited and a continue. DS blob storage, and here it is blob storage, and first was a header, and choose a file path, and none, and OK. Next we require a data set for watermark column, and watermark column is also we use as SQL. So SQL database, and we use ds underscore watermark, and the same linked service I am using here. Table name is this time we need to use watermark table. Now we created all the data sets and linked services. Now we need to create a pipeline. So give the PL pipeline, the name of the pipeline, PL incremental load, incremental loading. So as I am shown in the diagram, we require the two lookup activities. So lookup activity, and here we need to give the names for the lookup activity. So let me choose first lookup activity and second lookup activity. So the naming convention should use as properly. So this is for old lookup activity, the name of it. And settings, under the settings we use watermark, because this old lookup activity stores the watermark values, and nothing here we are going to do. So if you want, you can preview the data also here. So see, this is the date what we have stored. Then this is the new lookup activity, and give the new lookup activity name. And under the settings, here the database is our database SQL table you are using, and here we are using SQL query because it's going to use watermark value. And this is our, so it is going to select the maximum value. Now we require the copy activity. So we need to give the name of copy activity. I am giving as incremental copy activity, and the source is SQL database, and here we need to choose query. So here is the main thing is perform. So what thing will be perform here? It go and check when was the last modified date and what is the new modified date. So this is the query for that. Or you can use here this page also. I will give this page. I will also attach this page. If you want, you can use. See, the every procedure will be given here step by steps. So here also we can use the same query. And the sink is our blob storage. Next we required a store procedure to update the watermark value. So we require store procedure. Under the settings, linked service, we are using this one, and here we need to use watermark, the table name. Okay, and we need to here import the schema. So there are two schemas. One is last modified time and the table name. So this model is string. So no, sorry, date time, and the value we need to keep. So we'll get the value. So I will provide these values for you. And because this is like a hard coding, so parameterized is also called as. So instead of providing the individual names, we will provide this. And so coming to the data set blob storage, so as we are providing the incremental loading, so the file will change automatically. So we need to perform here, we need to provide the file name also. So okay, let me provide from our page. So we are concatenating, say, incremental load and a file line and ID. So every time the ID will change. So that's the reason it can be happened here, concatenating. So here we are going here, providing the file name. So it will give parameterized file name. Then we need to validate. So validation has completed. Now we need to run the pipeline. debug the pipeline. So we need to wait here. So two lookup activities are started. Refresh. So one is completed. So both the lookup activities are completed. Now copy activity started. See, the copy activity is also completed. So everything is completed. Okay. Now let me go to the Azure portal and stored accounts, blob storage, and under the container raw, we need to see the file is arrived. So let me check the data. So initially, as we know that we loaded the 5 records. See, the 5 records has loaded. So the first loading was completed. So now we need to perform the incremental loading. So for this purpose, I am going to insert few more records. I am going to insert 2 more records. Blob storage, database, and here query editor. Let me insert 2 more records. So two more records are inserted. Let me check. Total we should have 7 records. Start from. See. So total 7 records has completed. So let me go to the pipeline and debug again. We need to wait till the process completed. So process has completed. Let me go and check the output. Now here. See, records has stored 7, but loaded as 7 and 1 and 2. Completed. Let me go to Azure portal and we'll see. Now storage accounts, under the blob storage, one more file should arrive. Under the raw folder, there should be a second file. So this is the second file, and if you open, edit, see, there are 7 records. So now only the 2 new records are added up to here. So this is called incremental loading.